high school math. A lot of the things that we will talk about today will still be applicable, but we might have to tweak it a little bit. All right, that's me. And you can, this PowerPoint is on our website that you saw earlier, and it is the number 1, the word 2, T-O, 121, I don't remember. Don't open up Chrome. Or quit that, because that's going to kill everything on the computer. That's fine. So we can pull up the website and show you all of that as well. If you look here, these are the computers that we use at Burley Middle School. These are Lenovo's, but you can do any of these things that we will show you on any computer. All right. So in Albemarle County, we use the Blackboard learning system, and the Blackboard learning system we have in place to help our children work through the curriculum. As you know, books are old technology, and when books first came about, they were wonderful, and we still use books because they are very, very, very useful. But we have moved on to devices, and so we use Blackboard. In Blackboard, Pete and I both use Blackboard, but we use it differently. Each of us includes a suggested sequence, videos, either videos that we make or videos that are pre-made. We use it to give students notes and to have them take notes. And we include interactive elements such as games, flip charts, websites, and slide shares as well. One thing that has been really, really useful for me as a teacher is using Blackboard in order to communicate with students who do not speak English as a first language. We have a lot of students at Jackson P. Burley Middle School that speak only Spanish or only Russian or languages that I do not speak, and I do speak pretty good Spanish, but we use Blackboard so that it's a digital manner of communicating information to students, but we can either translate things for them or show them how to easily translate things for themselves. So here's an example of how something might look on my Blackboard page. So right here, I have a weight and mass lesson, and I'm telling them what to do, numbers 1, 2, 3. Notice that here, these are not numbered, and that's because we want to allow them some choice. So students learn in different ways. So we do have some things that are very structured. You need to do this, 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 and then some things where they can have choice. If you look down here, this is a video on weight and mass that just kind of introduced the concept, but then I also included one that was in Spanish. Now, when I first started doing this, I would have students say, Miss Jones-Lewis, yes, baby, I can't read this. No, you can't. Because that's in Spanish. Well, I don't speak Spanish. I said, well, please, for God's sake, do not watch the Spanish video. So that does take a little teeny bit of tweaking. And so now I have on my Blackboard some English information, some in Russian right now, and some in Spanish. Last year I had some in English, Spanish, and Arabic, and then my students came to me and said, I don't need the Arabic, you can take it off if you want. So that was fine as well.
And something with the Spanish one I would say is this year I have a level 1 ESOL student with very minimal support, but then I have 4 other kids in the same class who speak Spanish fluently, and so they're like, that's so much more helpful that I have that, even though they are fluent English and Spanish speakers. It's just another resource for them to be able to have.
It also allows kids to compare information across languages. So even if students who only speak English watch these Spanish videos, they understand that really their understanding of the mathematics concepts come through watching and doing and not as much through hearing. So. Here is another example from my Blackboard page. So here is just some games. These are the weight and mass notes that the kids took. It's important to note here that my notes were from my website, and I did that on purpose because the kids can then put the website into Google Translate so that the notes will be in whatever language they need. And then this is an Explore Learning that these students completed. Now, it's really important for me to remember that if students are in my classroom and they maybe don't speak English as their first language, that I am in math class to teach them math and to teach them English because they need to know that. And so I do not always provide support for them in their native language because they do need to come along in their English as well.
So I use Blackboard a little bit differently. I use it a little bit more as an online classroom where I end up putting everything in different folders with the website links. It's a definite accessible formats and a lot of differentiation where again students are able to pick and choose in what part they're going to do things. What I like most is it's a live document, so I can change it at any time. As a matter of fact, I already changed it today for my sub-plans for today while I was here. So students were able to sit there and say, oh, that's what I actually need to do. It's able to be prepared in advance and scheduled to be viewable to students in the future. So I scheduled Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday all over this weekend. And that it wasn't accessible to the students until it came to each day. So for me, that's really helpful for planning purposes, but also I'm not in school Monday and Tuesday. So this way, they're not getting ahead of themselves, they're not getting access to stuff they might not be ready for. It's very timed for when it's appropriate for them. Students are able to download all documents. This is very important for that because, especially for students who don't have any internet access at home, so as we have one-to-one, let's say 80% of our students have internet access at home. Well, then how are we going to be doing different things that might require it? We end up just spending a lot of time discussing, all right, so if we're going to have homework on this, if you need to download it, we need to make sure we allow time for students to be able to do that. So it might be a Word document, it might be a PDF or different things, but it just instructionally in class, you've got to remember that we have to do that because not everyone has internet access at home. And so again, it's accessible at school and at home. So for me, it's just a little bit differently. I just kind of have a very sequential that it starts with a do now kind of deal. I attach different files for it for whatever instructionally we're going to do. And then I kind of go with the sequence that we're going to go in class kind of deal. So we're going to watch a triangle review, so a video. You're going to pick some different games. You can pick one of the two. And then also we end up doing a lot of IXL because we are math. There is a time when we need practice kind of deal, and that still needs to happen. We still need some amount of practice. And then what I end up doing is I end up condensing each folder into each quarter, and then each quarter then has its different folders, so ratios, simplifying fractions, decimal percent. So this is your online classroom that you can go back to if you're in the third quarter. Oh yeah, we did that in September. I don't remember how to do that. And you can go back and be able to quickly identify, oh, this is how we go from fractions to decimals. Just as a quick reminder, because no matter what you do, you need to spiral. You need to sit there and go back and review things. This is an easy access for students to be able to do it. Flipped classroom. We've all heard the wonders of how wonderful flipped classroom is. I find that since I teach 6th grade, they're not fully ready for it. Developmentally, that's not where they're at. They can sit there and they can watch something, but overall, they are not as set for, that's my learning experience. So I do it a little bit differently than what most people typically use it as. I end up using Jing and Screencast where I end up making videos typically through an Active Inspire, and then therefore it actually has an interactive item where I'm able to be writing on it. So it's however you end up using an active board or a smart board. And so we end up moving different things and showing how we do it. And so we use that a lot as our notes. So students are able to see it live and actually working. As a matter of fact, I ended up doing a screencast this weekend with an Ames video for a beginning algebra introduction for combining like terms. And so that was nice and sweet. Really, it took the amount of time to play the video as it took to then download and everything else. So nice and easy. And those are my subplans also. So all of a sudden, my subplans are there. Purpose, I'll do a lot of as an introduction for procedures and skills. A lot for review. As I said, subplans, it's huge. You know, as you're not there, what are you going to do? What are you going to lead for kids to do? This way, you're not banking on, do I actually have a sub who knows math? Pretty much we all know the answer there is no. You know, so, oh, you were an art teacher. That's great. Awesome. But then when used instructionally, a student accountability part is needed. So sometimes it's going to be, all right, there's a guided notes aspect to it. So if you're going to be taking notes from it, all right, so if we're dividing fractions, why are you having the inverse operation? What is your purpose? Kind of situation. Also, last year, my technology, one of our coaches really put me onto Snagit, where it was a non-flash enabled item, which means it's a video that could then be downloaded onto student desktops for students who are not able to have internet at home. It was a pay item, but with an educator discount, it was like $30. Really smooth and easy. If anyone's ever used the Jing and Screencast, it's the exact same thing. It actually gives you a lot more options for it. But this way, again, you're not linked into, do you have internet access at home, to therefore review anything that you're doing. So this was just an example of they needed to watch a video, and then for the Blackboard, it ends up being just a quick little hyperlink for it. So, and then these are the subplans as well. Nice and simple. And then in Screencast, it kind of shows the different videos that you have. I've also kind of put it on a portal. I kind of stopped putting it on a portal because the Screencast was nice and simple, and then it was linked to Blackboard. So I was kind of 2-3 years ago linked up. Portal is very important. Just kind of stopped using it as much, kind of deal. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So just that ended up being a consumer math kind of introduction / review. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade content, but I'm a 6th grade math teacher. So for the consumer math, this one involved tax, tip, and discounts, and doing it in multi-step kind of situations. And it doesn't look like it's going to load. So that is okay.
This is waiting for docs, which is also fine. So Pete talked a little bit ago about subplans. I actually teach this year language arts and math, and the amount of stress that I have about missing math class is enormous. And I do not have that stress about missing language arts class because, frankly, my children can read. And when I get back, they will still be able to read. And so we understand, though, that in math, time is really important. And so a lot of math teachers don't even come to conferences like this because we cannot afford to lose the time. And so when you have Blackboard, you allow yourself time to do other things and become professionally developed. What I did this morning, what I did this morning is I went ahead and recorded myself just on my iPhone, just saying, hi kids, how's it going? Remember, I'm going to the VSTE conference. I'll see you later, be good. That was it. And then I uploaded that to my Blackboard page. We know that we have some students who, if they don't see your face, that morning they're having a bad day, right? And so Blackboard allows that to happen.
Now, one thing we didn't say that I think is also very important, so a couple things. This is our second year being one-to-one, so we had a lot of trials and errors our first year. But in math, we do still find it's important that not everything is always technology. There's a time and a place, and we don't have to always force it, that sometimes it is needed to, we're going to be dividing mixed numbers, and that doesn't necessarily have to be technology-based. So just wanted to make sure we do make that part pretty clear, because that's sometimes a confusion that if we're one-to-one, you always have to be using the computer at all times. It's not realistic, it's not practical. So like in our first year, we just made a goal that each quarter we kind of implemented something new. So like the beginning of the year, the first quarter, we just said, all right, at least our do nows we wanted as being using your computers. And then it's like, okay, we also wanted to have some kind of a practice element, so we started implementing IXL. Then we started adding another quarter, we want any of the review parts. And so slowly but surely building the capacity to be able to have an everyday situation that you are using the computers. Now we might find that some days in class we're using computers 80% of the time, sometimes it's 20, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So we also have a lot of different ways that students start sharing what they're learning. So we end up doing a decent amount of project-based learning. In math, that's very different than in other subjects. The project-based learning in math is much more of, this is my demonstration to show the math I have learned, as opposed to, let me now learn this through this kind of situation. And some other content areas, that's a big struggle. That it's different, that we're not necessarily learning the math through the project, it's our application of the math through our project situation. So this case, students are performing they ended up making some different slides, different presentations for, this one was laptop warranty kind of situation where it's talking about using different proportions and warranties and whether they're valid or invalid, when's it appropriate to use them. And so they had to do a lot of individual research, and then they had to present to the class of, all right, so maybe the warranties for a iPad is appropriate, but the warranty of a TV is not. So why at Best Buy are you spending $50 on each warranty? Shouldn't it be differentiated by individual items? You're not carrying your TV around with you, kind of deal. So I had a lot of good application for what is the point of this.
And then if you look over here on this side, these are some videos that my students made, and they were very low tech to start with, but they actually help students, again, not learn the math, but really think in a metacognitive way about whether they actually knew what they were doing or not. And that was important because I had some kids who said, Miss Jones, can I do mine again tomorrow? Yes, baby, are you gonna go home and study? And they did. Like, they went home and they worked it out. They Skyped each other. They went on Google Chat to figure out what they were going to say and to make sure that their math was right. Go to the next slide.
Just one thing I also want to say is one of the advantages of actually sharing this and presenting in this kind of format is the parents and the students also get to see how the presentations went. You know, one of the biggest issues is like a colleague of mine, we were both doing the same presentation at the same point. I had them videotaped and then they were put on Blackboard. He didn't. I had no parent issues. He had tons of parent complaints.
Because you know everyone's child is gifted and they deserve that.
But what was also important is we end up having the students watch their own presentations. So they're able to then score themselves on, wait, I really did do a good job of this versus, oh, I was looking at my hand the entire time, or looking at my shoes. You know, just start getting some basic presentation skills where they're able to actually identify it themselves instead of being the big bad wolf and just sitting there telling them, oh, remember, you want to speak up and look at your audience.
So those presentations that you saw on the last one, I wanted to include this page to show that it doesn't take a lot of extra time because we don't have a lot of extra time. So we just used one iPad link to my YouTube account. The students mapped out what they were going to say, and they had to actually write it out with pictures, and then they had 2 tries to record. And I told them that they could have two tries because frankly, if you don't know what you're doing, that's going to take a lot more time, and we don't have time for that. So those students who could not get it in 2 tries went home, worked it out, and then came back and tried again. And then I just went ahead and put those on my weekly page from YouTube.
Do we want to try?
No, because it's going to staff again. It's not say we did.
We have links, just project-based learning. My background originally is a K-8 math specialist, so I'm a real big believer in concept and understanding of math as opposed to a procedural understanding of math. So I think there's a big purpose and a point to our project-based learning, and so some of the different things I've found that are very successful, we've actually been using Mathalicious a lot. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. It is a subscription-based situation. I will tell you that my school, we use textbook funds as being able to justify getting 2 Mathalicious accounts. And so it's
clearly we're not buying textbooks. So.
Right. So in this case, it ends up being it's specifically a project-based learning kind of teacher website of just like 200 or 300 different lessons, and it's all focused on math. And it's really focused 6 through 12. So I strongly urge, the 6-8 is very strong. The algebra and geometry is solid. Algebra 2, it's starting to build, and there is some calc in it, actually. So I would strongly urge looking into it as a middle and high school math teacher. A lot of really, really great ideas, and it's really applicable to what you want to do. So like the warranty project, that was a Mathalicious session, and it was really, it really sets it up really appropriately for students of, oh wow, well let's start with, what are the prices of these? We're comparing the prices and doing a little bit of the individual research. There's a lot of different things you can do. It's the only, it's actually linked to Common Core standards, which is fine because as math you're still looking, proportions, algebraic reasoning. It doesn't matter as much for us. So it's actually set up reasonably well. And so like this is a 6th, 7th grade nutritional info item where they have to figure out in the end, how many Big Macs does each of these athletes need to eat? Or how many Big Macs, or how many games in their sporting environment do they need to play to actually work off X number of Big Macs? So it's really kind of a cool and clever idea to kind of go about it.
And in Albemarle County, we do focus a lot on lifelong learner standards. So we do want kids to learn math that they will actually use. So that's important. Like knowing that I ate 3 things of M&Ms, and yes, I took a walk, but that does not do it. That's why I'm like this, but at least I know. Okay, and then here is just some pictures of students working on a Mathalicious item. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I plugged in the Ethernet. A little bit about, sorry, somebody asked something. It's not really expensive. How much is Mathalicious? We didn't do it for.
It was about $180, I'm not going to lie. But if you're able to justify it as textbook funds, if your school can agree with that. So we ended up buying 2, and we used it as kind of just general text. We're not buying textbooks anymore. Yeah. Sometimes they will also allow free access. Our first year of it was free. Which is nice.
And on our website too, we have the website for this presentation. We have links to all of the stuff that we're talking about in case you want to go back.
So Sherica, why don't we stop the questions kind of midway through so we can try to get the links set up.
Pete, you were talking and she asked a question.
I know, but this way we can have more because he's here to help us to get the links set up.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Okay, so
That's why I'm wearing this
a lot of
ridiculous
people.
hat.
Very handsome.
You're gonna break out and dance
Does
pretty
look really
soon.
good. A lot of people. So stop now.
Yeah.
or
So
what?
we can just close the Wi-Fi for a second. Do we have any questions? As we're kind of midway through, it's kind of our intermission.
Does anybody have questions or comments?
This also happens in class on a regular
It
basis,
happens constantly.
unplanned.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
We are in our first year of one-to-one, and in the past, we've always kind of had a policy that substitutes are not allowed to use technology with computers because they don't have any training, things like that.
Yes.
What have you've talked about substitutes a couple times, what has been your experience? Is it pandemonium when the sub is in there? or-
No. And honestly, and we teach 6th graders. And so my kids, I told them Friday, hey, remember, I'm going to be out, all of your stuff is on Blackboard. So my sub plans say, let them stand up for the pledge, blah, 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 tell them to go to Blackboard. And then I'm talking to them, hello, remember, we're going to do this today. Here's a lesson, blah, 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 do this. And then that way, honestly, the sub doesn't have to touch a computer. But the kids are still using their technologies in class.
So if there is a problem, do you have like a technology expert kid in the room that helps?
A lot, actually.
Yes.
You get more
Yes.
and more, but that's not always a good thing.
Right.
And one thing I would say is like, one thing I have for sub-plans have one student per class log into Blackboard, so the student logs into it. I'm not going to lie to you, in middle school we don't worry as much about that, of the substitutes part with it. My wife teaches elementary and they have that exact same rule, and they have to avoid technology, and they're running into a lot of issues with it. But for us, we're able to say that if the students are the ones logging in, in the end, it's not really the sub that is the one who has to do a whole lot of that part.
And you're saying your students stay on task and do exactly what has been
Never.
expected of them?
Never.
Okay, because I'm in a middle school and I'm
Never.
thinking
But what I also we also make very clear is these are the expectations of each day, kind of deal. And when I come back, it's expected that that part is done.
Well,
Kind
and frankly too, like we can check what you did on your computer,
Yeah.
and or like you could use Google Docs or Google Slides and have them work on something. And I had a student the other day. He said, "Well, my partner and I worked really well." And I said, "Really?" Because when I go back into the revision history, it looks like your partner worked really well, and you didn't really do much.
Yeah.
So when he received a grade that reflected that, I was able to also show that to his mother, and that helps with, hey, your son didn't do anything, that's why he didn't get any credit. So that, any more questions?
I want to go back.
Yes,
What happens when the child forgets the laptop?
we have a couple of loaners, but we also give detention.
Even for
There you go.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
We treat it, it's a not bringing materials to class situation.
Yeah.
Some has access to extra laptops. Like
Well, they would have to go up to the library to get
Yep.
a loaner.
And in our first year, it was a much bigger issue. This year, it's been very smooth.
Yes, it
It's
has.
always been accessible. But I want to go back to the students always doing what they should.
Okay.
I will say math has, in our school, in our grade, has the least amount of issues of students being off task on computers. I think language arts, there's a lot more possibility. Oh, we're typing a paper all day, or the whole class. For us, it's not as much. We're also a lot better at close your computers kind of deal. It's okay, we're closing our computers at this time. But if it is a downtime, let's close them so the possibility there isn't. I'm not going to lie, as you get in the older grades, are the kids getting a little sneakier? Yes. You know, and we have a couple that will try, kind of deal. You know, we found one or two kids while taking a test all of a sudden on Minecraft. You know, now, at least we're not cheating, but we're not quite doing what we're supposed to be
They're not quite
doing.
there yet. They don't know how to cheat yet.
Right. Now, by 8th grade, they're going to get a little better.
And honestly, it's just all about classroom management, and it's the exact same where some teachers are better than others. But what I do is I put those, you know, those nosy know-it-all kids. I put those kids right beside the kids who I think need a little bit of structure, and then I'll have Miss Jones, and because they will tell in a minute. And the other thing that I have started doing is because kids don't always want to tell on other kids publicly, I'll have them send me an email just to say, hey, this kid's blah, 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 and then no one has to know that they told it.
Right.
Another thing is school policy. We have a technology school policy that the students and parents sign at the beginning of the year, and then we enforce it, and we let them know what they're not enforcing.
Follow through.
Are you gonna talk about some of your other accountability pieces, like what they have to turn in or whatever, as you go along?
There are some others that we'll get into because there's different parts of different things that, so like we end up doing a lot. I've started doing a lot more with Google Docs this year that we'll talk a little bit more on. And there's actually a part of Blackboard where you can do a lot of different assessments or turning assignments in and out. I don't use it as much. I think you've used it a little bit more. But overall, like, there's a lot of things that they'll email me if it's not kind of a Google Suite kind of situation where I can just be shared with. And that actually, it goes really smooth, surprisingly.
And, sorry.
There's one in the back.
How did you decide on the device?
It wasn't really our.
Yes, it was. We went to a petting.
Hold on. Yep. Hold on. We're
Zoo.
the short version, it was narrowed.
That does sound fun. That's fun.
The short version, the device we had was a third of the price of the other one.
Okay.
And so,
Does it do everything you need it to?
yes, it does. You know, it doesn't have a CD drive, but the reality is the students
They
don't need it as much.
That's right.
You know, it has EMAT, they're able to use internet. It has a video camera. You know, it's not a great one. It's better this year than last year.
Yeah.
Kind of
And
deal.
we seriously consider Chromebooks, but they wouldn't work with Explore Learning.
Right.
And so even though those are prettier and the kids like them more, we went with the Lenovo's. They're also pretty sturdy. And the
Yes.
kids are, I mean.
Because like you will not go a month in your class without a computer falling. It's gonna happen, kind of situation. And truth be told, I haven't seen one broken yet. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Our first year, we had one run over.
Not by reindeer either.
And a student had it laying right by the car, and they ran it over. It didn't help that the teacher was in 6th grade, parent. But it was not one of us.
No, it was not.
And in the end, they were able to just replace the motherboard, and it worked fine.
No.
So it was actually that impressive. It actually worked
Wow,
out.
the screen didn't?
No, screen didn't.
Wow.
You know, so they're a lot more durable than you think. It's like we have kids all the time. And we talk and grab them one-handed, trying to carry. It's like, no, you close, you have 2 hands. But they're still 11, 12-year-old kids. You know, and just because even in their high school, they're going to do it more often.
And just curious, like how 15-inch screens, smaller, bigger, what are they?
That could be a question back there.
11.6.
11.6.
Yep.
And how much is it?
That's what I was thinking, look.
Yeah.
$100 a piece?
That's small.
$500, $600. 5 and 6.
There we go.
No. Ours are down to 200 too.
And what is really funny is that the kids assume that they're cheap. They're like, this cheap computer. I'm like, you have $600 for that computer because I don't think so. You need to treat it nicely.
Very, very.
Okay, so we're going to go on to Google Slides, and I'm not going to read this because it's been up there for a really long time, and if you cared, you would have already read it. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip over that and just show you a couple of examples. And so this, well, and I am so proud of that because that is from my first year at Burley, and my babies just did not speak any English, and so they were like, well, how are we going to do our presentation? I said, well, and this was to teach something to someone else. And I said, well, people who speak Spanish also need to learn math. And so they did theirs in Spanish. Here is an example from Pete's class that's going to work.
It's gonna.
Of course it is.
Oh,
I think our
it is.
Boom.
Nice. And so obviously we're working on 3D geometry and measurement. And so short version, I want to just go to the second slide. It actually tells exactly what they had to do. You know, find the volume of a cylinder, rectangular prism, square base, pyramid, triangular prism, and a cone. And then surface area of a couple of them. Since this was a 6th grade class, we hadn't done Pythagorean theorem, so we weren't doing the surface area of the pyramid yet. We did by the end of the year. And then the color is the kind of tannish, I love that, and blue is your answer. So the tan is kind of what they were trying to do. The white, just pick any of them, doesn't matter. Kind of deal. And so just this is a very straightforward project of, the original project was you have to make these items for a kindergarten class, but everything has to fit within a 1-foot cube kind of situation. And so they had to then figure out all the dimensions for it and how it would work. So it could be very open-ended. I've learned in the past you have to make sure that you're not allowed to be 1 foot or 1 inch. Otherwise it kind of makes the math a little too easy. But really straightforward, but it really made it very clear who was able to do the math.
Right. And as important as math is, we need to understand that that is the kind of thing that will get our kids a job. Being able to do the math and then communicate that to someone else in a reasonable manner. When I do presentations as well, I make sure that the kids know that you may not get up in front of my room and talk for 45 minutes. I do not want to hear that. You need to be concise. You need to know what you are talking about, and they really rise to the
Not that we would do that like right now.
like forever, like last week. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Active Inspire. I'm kind of a religious user of Active Inspire. Goes with an active board. It's the same kind of deal as a smart board kind of situation for those who don't know. But it also turns the student computers into an interactive whiteboard. And so I find this very useful when we start doing the drag and drop kind of thing. So I might give them 5 fraction decimal percents and they have to then rearrange them in order from greatest to least kind of deal. So they're just literally moving them around on their own screen. And then like we might model it also what the correct answer is. So we're able to get a little bit more of your tech enhanced items for the SOLs because most of our online testing systems, they are not able to do that. They're able to do multiple choice or maybe a short answer. We start doing the drag and drop and things like that, it's not there.
Right.
So this is a good resource for it. I do a lot of my online and classroom instruction there. I find it very helpful. So we'll have our general notes. So, you know, all of these shapes are parallelograms. And so like this would be just a basic do now question. What do all of these have in common? And so they really have to start looking at the different properties of your different quadrilaterals. And so just giving some guiding ideas of different vocabulary for it. Basic matching stuff, you know. Do you want to draw the lines? Sure. Do you want to drag them over? Sure. Doesn't matter. This way you're still going about it. And this one is actually, they had to watch a video the night before on interior angle measurements of a polygon, and then they were actually building different polygons to find a rule for it. So pretty high level. So like this do now ends up being about a half hour. It ends up half the class. So you have to be very intentional of what you're going to do. You know, because to have a sixth grader sit there and build different polygons and try to create a rule from it, that takes a lot of work and a lot of math for them to be able to do it. But they're completely capable in it.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about using things other than Blackboard because everyone doesn't have Blackboard, nor will Blackboard be purchased for everyone. So before I started using Blackboard, I did a lot of the same things on a website. Now, I'm using a Weebly website. Our county is now encouraging us to use WordPress, and there are lots of other websites that you can use. What I really like about Weebly, though, is that it's intuitive. Like, kids can look at it and go, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do now. And that it automatically saves, because you cannot count on sixth graders to save their work. They lost all of it. And, of course, Google Sites does the same things, but Google, to me, is not intuitive, and I just kind of don't like it. You can get your own domain name as well as password protected pages for each kid. Your own domain name is not free, but you can get password protected pages for each kid for free using Weebly for education.
Want to show yours?
Sure. If it goes there, then I will show it.
And actually, at lunch, Sherica was updating her website for this presentation, which I thought was kind of cool.
Go here, and you can go to, it doesn't matter.
So we're
Sure.
just starting. Sure.
Go back.
Pick that one.
Well, because these are in progress. So this is the vocabulary, but what I think is important, and I did tell you that I teach language arts as well, because I feel like a lot of our kids struggle in vocabulary development in math because we teach it like math and not like language, and it's still language. Like, we have to teach them roots and prefixes and suffixes so that they know what is going on. But what I really like is that my kids looked through the NCTM standards and the Virginia SOLs, and they pulled out the vocabulary. They said these things are important. And then what I did was I provided them with a list of vocab words and then let them check that against that. And then they went ahead and came up with definitions. Right here we have what should be a video.
There it is.
Right. And so some of these are videos that the kids made and uploaded to their websites, and then there are also videos that they found. They were basically pulling together resources so that when they go back to understand that, and this was done by my Hispanic students, which I do love again, but they know what to study and how to study, because a lot of students really do struggle with studying math. They're like, but I know it because I did those 5 problems that you gave me. Well, no, baby. So the other thing that I think, go to just click here. That's totally gonna work. was that I had them write it in kid language. So I had them look at the standards and say, wait a minute, what does that mean? Like, what are you actually supposed to be able to do, so that they know what the learning targets are, and they can say, you know what, I really don't know how to do that. I really actually don't know what you're talking about at all. Let's go back and try that again. Go back to the presentation. Not that one, the PowerPoint one. Is it play? Oh, and I didn't show this, but we also have a page that has student made, that has real world applications. So they can say, all right, this is what I learned in math. This is how I'm going to actually use this in my life, because then they actually want to learn it, instead of being like, well, this is what I told you to learn, so now we're learning that today.
Digital writing and math. One thing I've been playing with this year is trying to do more writing using the computer in math. And so the two main things I've been doing is specifically using discussion boards, but then also using Google Docs. For the discussion board, what I'm simply doing is like we're coming up, like we might have like 8 problems, and they have to solve them. So like I have them originally solve them, or I have them solve them with a partner, but then each group is given a way or a specific problem to respond to in a discussion board on how they arrived at the solution.
I'm going to show that.
Okay. So like over here, they had to figure out how they came up with a solution, and so then every group needs to respond with one of three ways. A, I agree, did it the same way. B, I agree, I did it a different way. Or C, I disagree, this is what I came up with and how I did it. So it's the students who are now checking their own work instead of me checking it. So it's a little bit more accountability for them. And so like here we just have just a little bit of thank you, some different student responses. You know, so looking at Kelby and Stephen's answer, we realized that theirs was correct and our answer was wrong. You know, just the perfect metacognitive situation of, oh, just seeing how someone else solved it made me realize this is what I really should have done for it. So I think that was very powerful for them. Because like in the end, like I had one group that was actually really the 2 or 3 smartest kids in the class, and they couldn't figure it out. It was a problem that you really had to draw out, but they wanted to figure out through computation. You know, that would require a couple of, so it was multiplication of fractions, you have to then subtract your answer from the original whole number, and so they were skipping that step, so they ended up not figuring out, but the group of what I would say is some of my lower students were able to figure it out spot on by saying, I drew it out, I got it this way. So it was perfect, and I wasn't the one doing it, it was all through them. And so this is something that like we started. Yeah, and these were the smarter kids. You know, they needed it. It was really good to see. It takes like a full class period to go through 8 problems, and I just make the requirement: you are required to respond to every original post, so every individual problem kind of situation. So actually, the last month or so, I've started playing with a little bit of a different situation. This was actually Thursday's class, where I had students who were doing consumer math, and they had to write 5 problems. And 3 of them needed to be one-step, 2 needed to be multi-step, using tax tip, discount kind of stuff. And so they were doing it on Google Share. So then they shared it with another group when they were finished. Pretty straightforward stuff. They're then doing the math. And then I stole 1 question per group for a quiz on Friday, which was a lot of fun. They wrote the quiz. You know, it's like, and so it's like, it's very straightforward because, hey, you were the ones who wrote this. It's not a perfect decimal goes to. That's what happens in real life. You know, sometimes the price when you do the division is $13.73.5 because you're splitting it with your brother. That's what happens. What do we now do with that kind of situation? So they came up with the questions, and then they were the ones to solve it. And I personally love my favorite. My one little guy kept asking 1 question about this problem, and finally, after the 3rd time, like, this is the one you wrote. You should know how to solve the problem you wrote.
My personal favorite is the Tankini story. You cannot use that in high school. That's going to get just people way off track. Okay, so first of all, I realize that I am getting a little bored here, which means y'all are already bored. So is there anyone who would like to ask a question? If not, I'm going to introduce this and let us get up for a minute and walk around and let you give your butt some room. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
When you have the students making their own weekly, what kind of things are they making on theirs?
That was theirs.
That which part?
All of it.
Okay,
So basically, what I did is in during my homeroom time, I had one kid set up pages, and then the kids picked their groups and they did the pages.
okay.
Yes.
So that thing that you were showing that you were putting on the website, that the kids did that?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I have 3 children and I do not have time to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, those were all their pages, which is why some of them aren't done on the same page.
The same site, and they're just adding pages.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks. What grades have their own websites?
That was 6th grade, but I also did this with 4th graders and 5th graders. They can do it, like they just.
I'm curious about the 14 issue.
Well, the thing is that that's under my name,
Right.
so technically it's my site, and they're working on my site, which is why I had the kid make all of the pages under there, and then you just click on them, and you say, okay, well, we're working on pattern functions in algebra. Okay, you're responsible for these 4 pages. Because they are supposed to be 13. That's how we do it. And the weekly for education, I do believe has different what's the thing called? Ages. I'll take time there. All right, so this is from my blog, and what we did is the kids had to think about how to spend $1,000, and you could change that and have them use tax and all kinds of other stuff. But I did this just to try to introduce this concept. And here is where the people from the Red Cross in our area actually posted on the blog what $1,000 could do, so that the kids think a little bit more about real stuff and not like Xboxes and stuff. And I just thought that this was precious because her church did flood, and she posted that she would give that $1,000 to her church. Again, just lifelong learner skills, things that we need to be working on. Well, we have to hurry up too. Okay, so let's get up. And these are some ways that we are using to share work with parents and guardians. I would say parents and other caring adults. So let's go ahead, and if you would like to, you can get up and tell someone else in the room that you don't already know one way that you share work out.
Google Docs.
Or you don't want to get up. Y'all just want to. Okay. That's fine as well.
Glued to our seats.
That's fine as well. So I use Ustream. Come on. Go ahead and share. Yeah, still got one person got up. That's okay. There you go. When your butt goes to sleep, your brain is already sleeping. I use Ustream, and Ustream is like parents can actually watch their child's presentation real time, and or you can save it so that they can watch it later, which is really good. They can also see things on Blackboard and through the website. And then that's just another picture of the blog. Let's keep moving.
Do you stream a website?
Ustream is a website, and again, all of these links are on our website page.
On your school website?
We'll show it to you in just 1 second.
Okay.
Do you have any parents who are upset that their children are on the web?
No, because we have them sign off, and kids who don't have permission are just not on the web. That's why too. That my one project where they did the paper, it's only their hands, so that no faces are on there.
We have a lot of teachers who use Edmodo.
Yes.
And that's another that has the parent communication piece, but also every parent who has an account can see what their child is doing,
Right.
including what they post. That's nice to have that collaboration with the parent.
Yes. And parents too, a lot of times, no matter how smart their kid is, they think that they're really, really smart. And it's just because they don't have like a lot of baseline. But when they can go on there and see, well, my kid's doing this and these kids are doing this, then they get it, and you don't have to tell them, hey, your kid's a little behind. I mean, I still tell them, but They understand.
But then they already know, so it's
Yes.
okay.
And so this is, go ahead.
Yeah, I was using a Survey Monkey for a little while. I use it kind of periodically as a way to kind of a quick gut check of how comfortable do you feel on this. So I had students and parents fill this out, and I just basically gave the general standards that we were working on. So I kind of gave it mid-year, end of third quarter, end of the year. And so it's just a really, it's like fractions, decimals, percents, proportions, properties, inequalities, and I can teach other students it, which means I'm really good, and is this unit over yet? And they kind of break themselves anywhere in between for it. And from there, we get a very quick result, and I now know very quickly what we need to study and review, kind of deal. So like I can get it from the students, I also get it from the parents. Because one thing I've always found is, as we end up doing different reviews throughout the year, Johnny might be doing the makeup test, and how much extra work is mom and dad necessarily doing at home? So they sometimes also know that they might be struggling a little more than they let on, or all of a sudden they hired a tutor without you knowing. And our comment in 6th grade, if you're hiring a tutor to do 6th grade math, you better have a lot of money because you're going to be doing it every year from now on. Just go to the level you belong.
So these are also some ways to share it, and this was one of these surveys was up on my page, and then if you look over on this side, there is a Powering Smallsburg blog, and that was powerful because we actually got some engineers to look at the students' work and to pick the best plan, and they gave them feedback, and their parents also gave them feedback, so that was pretty powerful. Okay. Phew. All right, so we do have a blog page. If you go ahead and go to one-to-one-math.weebly.com, that's going to take you to the home page for this presentation, this session rather. I did click this and exactly I did whatever. And so that'll bring you here. If you look under resources and links, here's the presentation, and we tried to link to everything that we talked about here with some project-based learning ideas down here, and then some other tools here. That was feedback that we got from our last time that we presented. And then if you look on the blog, this is just a link to a survey. If one or two or everybody who's like, I need this survey. could fill out that survey, we would really appreciate it because we want to change up things so that it's better.
Anyone have any questions?
What about the testing? We didn't cover a whole lot about testing, but you did just mention somebody did a makeup test.
All right, so
Because I want to ask basically what about equation editors? I'm teaching Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, and my biggest problem with going over to the new technology is the lack of applications that work under the new technology that allow you to do equation editing.
Yes. We actually, this year, at this point, we just transitioned from using SchoolNet to Illuminate. So we were using SchoolNet 5-6 years, and then now we are transitioning to Illuminate. I will say we are actually very, very good at doing all of our unit tests online. We are one of the few, I'd say, in our school
Yes.
that really are doing that. So, but math-wise, we end up doing all of our quizzes paper pencil. Honestly, what I find for Illuminate is the equation editor is not particularly user-friendly. I find it much better than Blackboard's equation editor. I'm not a particular fan. That's my personal opinion. I know a lot of people use Blackboard a lot for the assessment purposes. That's not something I personally do. What we end up having, so we end up using Illuminate. And at this point, the equation editor is workable. I'm not going to lie, as we right now are moving into my larger algebra unit for combining like terms and dealing with polynomials. I've had that always paper pencil, and I wish I had a better answer. Our algebra and geometry teachers do end up doing it as a paper pencil. But I think it's also it's a new program for us, and we just need to actually get better at using it.
Blackboard has, you can put questions into Blackboard pretty easily, but for math questions, what I normally do is just write them on a piece of paper and then take pictures of them and then upload them that way. Now, what that does though is that there's one right answer, you either get it right or wrong, and that's it. And for a lot of our units, that's appropriate because you need the right answer and that's it. But for some units, it's not appropriate because you want to see where they went wrong. We also do it for more like kind of end of quarter or like longer assessments
More
where
summative versus formative.
Right. And because at that point you kind of know where they're going astray, like that. But that's kind of all we have for assessments. Blackboard and then. And Illuminate doesn't have a good equation editor, but our county has a bunch of questions already loaded in there, and we just choose them, download it, and it's attached. So,
We make
and then you can edit there too.
Yeah, actually, the Google Docs equation editor is fair.
It is.
But it ends there.
There was, I was in a session yesterday, there's an extension, for, you know what it was called? GMAT?
GMath, I just recently heard about it. I haven't checked it out yet. I just got an email on it.
That's why I
Yeah,
put
GMath,
something.
okay.
I've used Lucid Chart for history, but we use it for a lot of stuff.
Lucid chart.
Loosen chart.
Lucid, L-U-C-I-D.
Okay, Lucid chart.
And we will just add links to both GMath and Lucid Chart on here, just because you know when you leave, you're not gonna really remember this.
Thank you.
Like the kids.
Yes,
Like, what did we do yesterday? I don't know.
Those of us who take notes remember.
Yes. Any other questions or comments, concerns, bad things to say about it?
Hey, I drove.
Yeah. You don't want to walk back, do you?
So, this, in your classroom, every kid has their own tablet or laptop. Do you have other devices too?
Some.
Some.
So we have iPads and Nooks that we can check out from the library. We have a iPod cards. A lot of kids bring their own devices as well. I end up having kids because what is really important is that, especially for student choice, if I say, all right, do a project on this, it doesn't matter what you use, just do it. Some kids choose to use paper, and that's okay. So if I have them turn it in on Blackboard, which somebody asked about earlier, the students can upload things to Blackboard. I don't allow students to just link to me on Google Docs, because frankly, it takes me too much time because I live in the country and my internet's slow. So they have to actually download it from Google Docs and then upload it to Blackboard. But if they did a pencil paper, just take a picture of it, email it to yourself, upload it, done. And so that way you're not restricting them based on what you want, kind of thing. So,
Do you see them every day?
Yes.
my students, yes, I did.
Yes. We are a double block schedule.
Yes.
It is still 6th grade, so that's.
All right. Well, it's 3:44, and
Thank you very much.
thank you.